So let's start with the polish of the walk cycle. And for that, in this case, especially when it comes to cycles, no matter if it's walk, run, jog, I like to do more like a layer approach, which I find like quite handy and easier to navigate. So we'll focus on the hips, center of gravity, and then we'll move into the legs, potentially going back and forth between both of them as they are like the key elements of the walk cycle. And then after that, we'll move into the torso, arms, and finalizing with the head. So before I start animating, a couple of things. Let's check first how the cycle looks without the step preview. Hopefully should not do too bad. Yeah, as you can see here, like because we spent quite a bit of time on the key poses, it looks quite alright actually. Especially the legs, they need a lot of work and transitions and stuff, but overall quite a good foundation to work with. And yeah, that's the first thing. Also, what I'm gonna do before keep going is here on the meshes I'm gonna hide the strap as well in case it's a bit distracting. And what we want to make sure to do is like we select all the controllers, and as you can see here the tangents are completely flat. So what we want to do is here curves, pre-infinity cycle, and post-infinity cycle. And that's what I'm gonna help us is, especially later on when we start like shifting keys around, it's not gonna affect our animation, as we're gonna have the full cycle, so it's gonna help us like making easier our life when it comes to like moving around keys and offsetting controllers. So that's thing done. And then last but not least, as you realize here, so for example, this curve is completely fine, but things like the the C or the X here, because the tangents are in auto, you have like flat ones, and that kind of breaks the flow of the curve. So what we can do is either selecting all the first and last key on all the controllers and press this, which is gonna help us like give us a better foundation, or in my case what I like to do is like go once I'm working on each control, then I make sure I pick the right ones, and I do that because if you do that in the normal ones, you can see it can mess up a bit with the keys, so you're gonna have to end up like tweaking them anyway. So what I'm gonna do is like on the go, like start like tweaking them. So let's move on to the hips first, as we said, and let's start with the up and down motion. I think it's quite solid. The first thing we want to fix are the tangents. We can manually tweak them a tiny bit more. A good thing that you can do as well is you zoom out a bit, you can see here a little bit, so you can double check, it flows nicely, and there's not like, like a weird step in here. So that's really nice, that visual help. And the other thing I want to do is, I think I'm going to lower a bit the up and down. I think it's a bit too high, so slightly lower, something like that, to be a bit more contained. I think it looks better like that. Then we can move into the forward and backward motion, and here I don't want to go too crazy with it, but it's good even have a tiny bit of motion. So usually theory behind this is on the down pose is when we get like the maximum point forward, and then when we go to the up, the back. So we can pick both the down poses, move them a tiny bit forward, not too much, and then we can leave the up here at 0, and what we can do is like easy in the other ones, something like that, and transform the tangents, to make sure everything flows nice. Yeah, something like that. We don't want to, we can even potentially remove these ones, we don't want nothing crazy here, just a tiny bit of motion. I'm moving into the side-to-side walk. Here is a bit more of a mess, and what I like to do in the side-to-side is, around 8 here, probably I'm gonna leave the peak, so you can grab the down pose and easy into that position, fix the tangents, and maybe here as well do the same. This one we can easy turn it in here, something like that. So now we have a bit of hole on both side to side, but a smooth like curve. Yeah, that's quite happy with it for now. So let's move into the rotation, and for that let's pause this, pick this controller. Let's start with the side-to-side motion. And here pretty much we have nice curve. We can, another thing I wanted to mention here when we are doing polishing is sometimes you don't need extra keys like here, so feel free to clean them, you know, and then you can push a bit the holes in here, the extreme, you know. So what I'm gonna do is around these areas when we want the extreme, so I'm gonna offset a few frames, 2-3 frames. So that way we have, if we check all the controllers, the different axes, now they don't hit all of them, the extreme, on the same frame, which is sometimes is nice, even if it's just 1 or 2 frames different. That's gonna create a really nice offset around the entire body, and it's gonna feel more natural. So something like that is gonna help a lot. Then we have the text, which is gonna be again fixing these things. And here the tangents. Maybe I'm gonna soften this a tiny bit, but I think I'm gonna leave it as it is. You know, we have the nice forward motion in here, but not too much. Maybe clean a bit this curve and done. And then C, which is the bit more crazy one. We have a nice tilt overall. Let's fix tangents here. You know, when we plant and then boom, you can see here in the hips, boom, the nice boom here, tilt. Maybe it's a bit too much. I'm gonna reduce a tiny bit. Yeah, something like that. Yeah, we don't wanna go super crazy, because we wanna like quite subtle, but it's still there. So yeah, something like this, and these ones I might soften them a bit, the transition. But yeah, overall I think I'm quite happy with this. Now we have different keys hitting different like frames, which is good. So it creates a nice like a smooth motion. And with that we cover the hips, and we can move into the feet. So for the feet, couple of things we want to make sure to keep in mind. As a checklist, obviously the linear motion when it goes back, you know, so the feet is going to be planted. If we create like a forward cycle, we want as well good weight on the planting, that there's no like weird rotation or a small side to side like issues. Here it's quite nice, so that's fine. And also the trickier part, which is going to be the takeoff, to make sure it works nice and smooth. So let's start part by part. We're gonna do same as in the blogging. We're gonna do the left foot in this case, because it's the front one, and then we'll duplicate into the right one. So the side to side motion is fine. Here is completely planted, and then it opens up and goes back in, so that's good. When it comes to like rotation, usually I like to, especially when it comes to more cartoony, in like 3 steps. So we get the heel first, like here, then everything but the toe, and then the toe. So and in 3 frames we have really nice like plant as a rule of thumb. So here what we can do is like, as if we set the rotation X, we drop it, and then here we drop the toe. Just bring this down. And now if we compare the left with the right, you can see the left one has way more weight, so that's good. Another thing we can do as well is double check the rotations, the side to side. Here, as you can see, it's kind of like messed up a bit, so I'm gonna bring this up to match in here, and if it plants into here, we can delete all this and bring this into the frame too. Boom. And now it's completely nicely planted, boom, and then goes back. And the same with C. It's gonna be 2. We can even delete these keys if you guys want to like have a cleaner like graphator. And another thing I want to do here is, in this specific case, I'm gonna favor the last pose, because if we keep it like this, look at it, looks a bit weird, like almost sliding. You see the left foot, sorry. So I'm gonna favor the next key, and it's gonna transition better. Boom. That's good. Okay, that's done from the rotation for the front part, you know, with the contact. we'll do the takeoff later. And now the translation, as you can see here, is kind of alright, but we can just delete all these keys, make this linear, and this one, if we make linear, you can see there's a problem with the with the handles in here. So what we can do is expand this and we break the tangent, and now we can tweak them separately, so that way we have this nice motion, and then here it goes back to normal, which is good. So I might actually, looking at this, I might soften. Let's see. From the X rotation here. But the toe, actually, I might add a bit more in here. Then maybe soften a tiny bit. Yeah, something like that. So back to the translation. We had the constant here, which is good, and then when it takes off, although we'll polish that later properly, what we want is like here, maybe favor a bit back, and then boom, move forward quite a bit. Because what we want to avoid is like to have this like a linear transition between here. This is the perfect opportunity to take off, starting easing, then accelerate, and then easy out here before it plants. So that's gonna like help us, giving like a better flow with that. So now we have that, we can focus on the tricky part, which is this one, which is mainly, we want is from the 18, you know, because here is fine, same here. So it's from the 18th to the 22nd to kind of like have a nice roll motion in the heel. So if you are using this with the rotation and stuff without the sliders, you're gonna have the pivot point in the heel, so you can get the motion editor, sorry, the motion trail, and you can check that the curve is nice, the same way we analyze the curve in the in the blocking. You know, you have a really nice arc in here. If it's like me that I had this, that's not gonna work. So what you can do is like a parent or constraint allocator in here in the heel and check the motion trail, and it's gonna give us the same effect to track the arc nicely. So things we want to do is like, once we start taking off, we want to completely, oops, not that one, all this to be zeroed, you know, something like that. I think maybe a bit more, yeah, something like that. Maybe here actually I'm gonna let's something like try like this. We roll, and now here we can got this back. We want to make sure it keeps moving forward nicely, like that, something like this. One kind of like eyeballing the heel, you know, if we pay attention to have a nice rolling here. You see this part is already like working nice. So now we just need to take care of this part in here, which the problem is like it locks in here too soon. You see the knee? It kind of like goes forward too soon. So here, maybe in the 18th, we can, is it the toe tip? Yeah, we can keep this foot planted. Yeah, almost there. We just need to like clean a tiny bit more. But overall the feel looks already like way smoother. All these rolling here for the takeoff. So here what we want is like so we can add a couple of frames in here. Another thing I like to do is like track the knee. You see how it goes well and then boom, it pops in here. So maybe here we can actually I'm gonna reduce a bit the toe tip in here as well. Yeah, you can see here how it starts to look more smooth. Yeah. So yeah, tracking the knee is quite nice as well to avoid like crazy pops. And yeah, the only problem with this setup is like we had to go back between a couple of like sliders in here, but it's fine because after a couple of tweaks, as you can see here, it's already like looking quite smooth, quite nice. And now what we need to fix is like here how it enters into the contact pose. So for that, what I want to do is like, let's go back, especially during the translate Y, as it feels quite flat at the moment. You know, we want a nice, goes up in here and then goes down and then goes up again before it goes back into the contact. So maybe 28, something like this. We can actually, because the feet are so long, we need to pay a bit of attention. But you can see here how like it goes up and then goes down with a nice arc and then up a tiny bit, doing the up before planted. Yeah. Let me double check if they're good. Maybe here. Bring in a bit more. No, actually, it looks good like that. Good. So okay, we have this smooth motion. I just want to double check with the feet that everything is perfectly planted. So here we're gonna drop a tiny bit. Oops. Tiny bit. There you go, something like this. Yeah. And we can always, again, create the locator, double check, you know, the here the spacing maybe needs to be a bit more tweaking forward. Let's bring this a bit up. Yeah, I think something like that. Yeah. Yeah. That looks quite alright like that. Quite happy with the result. Then we can as well double check because we have here, as you can see, the leg is quite locked during these few frames. So maybe here a bit up and then it locks. Yeah, something like that. Yeah. That's good. Yeah, so now once we have this leg like that, we can like mirror the leg into the right one, and then we can move into the torso. Okay, so now we have the two legs working fine. You know, we can always like, again, polishing a bit more, like, you know, making sure the tweaking like the knee and even like the trail, like checking the arcs as best as possible and stuff. But yeah, I think for now this looks okay enough, so we can move into the upper part of the body. And for that, let's check the controllers. So the torso. Let's start with the side-to-side motion. Thing is, again, we can clean here the keys and stuff. I think it works quite fine so far. The only thing I'm gonna do is like maybe add a bit more side-to-side motion, so it doesn't feel too rigid. Yeah, something like that looks better. Now it looks more like following, you know, helping the side-to-side with together with the arms, which is good. Then we move into the tilt. Here we need to fix the tangents again. It's good. And here, probably what I wanna do is like soften this curve a bit. So something like this, and this one bring it a bit down like that. Yeah, we can actually add a key in here. Increase this. Yeah, something like this. And let's clean these tangents a tiny bit, so that way we have the nice tilt during the down and a bit on the up. See, and then transition from one passing, sorry, to boom, the other down, boom in here. But again, when it comes to the torso, especially the tilt or the this one, which is the forward and backward or up and down rotation, I like to keep them quite subtle, just enough to feel them alive, but not going to overly crazy, especially in this type of animation we are doing with the armor. You know that the guy is quite stylized but not super crazy, so something like that works fine. Let's fix this tangent now for the up and down, and here it's pretty much the same. We want maybe frame 3. Yeah, when it's going down it drops. Actually frame 2. Then when it goes up around here, we can have this nice dragging here. Yeah, something like that. See, it's like a nice overlap with motion, and it looks quite nice. And yeah, we can as well, this could be like a good opportunity to, for example, add a bit of squash and stretch. For example, you can add, when it goes down, a bit of stretch, and then when it goes up around here, which is this one, right? Yeah, 10th. Oh, yeah, 10th. So it would be 26 and 10. You can add a bit of squashing here, for example, if you wanted. You see, and then you can have a nice, you can like polish it, obviously this properly, but you could have a nice small bounciness on the torso. It could look quite nice. But yeah, that's just a suggestion if you wanna like more texture to the animation. But with this, should be more than enough for the torso, and then we can move into the arms, and we're gonna do the same as we did for the legs. We're gonna cover, in this case, the left arm, and then we'll just mirror everything. So let's start with the shoulders. I think this one can clean. Quite happy with the side-to-side motion of the shoulders, but thinking us is if not easy in and easy out, so I don't want to go too crazy with it. Same with this. This axis actually in this rig doesn't too much, as you can see here. Let me get any closer. It's more like almost affecting the skin a bit too much, so I just want to keep it like quite subtle. And then this one is the one that I'm gonna pay a bit more attention, which is the up and down, because here we want to have like a nice arc, you know, like so. You have this kind of like motion, arc motion in here, in every step here. So here we go a bit down. No, sorry, here when the arms is passing, we go a bit down, and then goes up. Boom, 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 boom. Nicely. You have a bit of like dragging here because the hips are going down, and then when it goes back, the same. We want nice down and up in here, as you can see. You see, so we have this really nice double bound that looks quite solid. That for the shoulder. Let's move on to the arm. Yes, I think we can clean this, push this, and here when it comes to the right arm, I think I'm gonna leave it as it is. You can potentially drag one frame if you wanna be more smooth, but yeah, I wouldn't touch too much on this because it looks already quite good. When it comes to the X rotation, the main thing is here when it goes in, we want the nice rotating inwards, you know, and we can favor this, and then here when it goes back, boom, opens up. And then we have the C rotation, which in this case what we're doing is, because he has the armor plate, we are opening up during the passing and then it comes back in. But another option that could look really nice is when it goes up here, is like to help this inwards, like during the passing here, bring this in, you know, like that. So really good, but yeah, I'm gonna leave a bit of the opening because of the armor plate. Maybe I'm gonna ease in a bit, but that way I give more room later on when we animate the armor plate, so looks fine. But yeah, the other way I show is nice because it gives us as well a really nice circular motion on the whole arm. And then we can move into the wrist. Oh, sorry, not the forearm first. I forgot. So here for the forearm, very straightforward. Let's make sure the cycle works fine. X and C, we don't use it as we don't naturally can move the forearm in this axis. So we can, physically speaking, only use this axis. Realize, so we're gonna try to constrain to that. And here it's gonna be a nice we want a nice overlap. So what we can do is like maybe here shift the keys 2 frames. We have a nice overlap effect on the forearm. If you want it more cartoony, you could exaggerate more. If not, you can, like, you know, if you want to lead, the motion would be the other way around. You can see here I can lead the motion, but yeah, here because it's reacting opposite to the run, it's gonna, I think it's gonna look good. If it's too much, we can just out a tiny bit, you know, so it doesn't go too crazy. And with that, we can move into the wrist. That when it comes to C and X, I don't want to go too much. X is nice in here. I'm gonna soften that because we want just to help when it goes in, rotate inwards as well. So I'm gonna offset, so you have a nice offset in there. And with the C, what we want is like one is going back in here, maybe to have this rotating a bit in, but I'm gonna reduce that tiny bit. Yeah, something like that. And then the main thing, which is the Y axis, go here. Sure, I can clean this a tiny bit. And I think the overlap right now is a bit too much, as you can see here, especially here. So I'm gonna maybe reduce that a tiny bit. Yeah, something like that, you know. We want like a subtle overlap that is gonna like get really nice secondary motion on the wrist, but not going like super, you know, like this. It's gonna be maybe too much. So yeah, tiny subtle and stuff. Okay, that's good. So we had the left arm working nice. So now I'm gonna mirror the arm into the right one, and then we can move into the head. Okay, so now we have the 2 arms working quite nice. I might actually, now I'm seeing this, reduce a bit of the up and down of the shoulders, tiny bit. So we're going to the C. Yeah, something like that. This is the good thing as well about this approach, like of the layer method, because you are working on a specific part, so it's very easy to go back to the cubes, sorry, tweak things, exaggerate, scale and stuff, and it works quite easy. So now let's move into the head. And for that, the main thing was the X motion in here, which is the up and down. So here it's gonna be the same as with the torso, probably around frame 3. We want the nice drag here. You can see in the viewport like this nice drag in here. And then when it goes up, boom, the other way around, maybe until here. We don't want to crazy, just a tiny subtle bit. I'm maybe gonna drop the head a tiny bit more. But yeah, a tiny bit motion to kind of like follow that. So it feels it's there. It's not rigid, but it's very subtle. Then we had the side-to-side motion that we didn't add anything yet because I was like, yeah, let's get this now. We are working on the layer approach. So here probably around 4. I'm gonna rotate in here, favoring as well to the left side, and on 20 it's gonna be the other way around, something like this. And then what we can do is kind of like favor this, so we have the nice hold in here. Nice easy, nice, yeah. It's just a tiny bit, but it gives already a bit of extra texture. And then we can do the same with the tilt. Tilt is probably around, say frame 5. We can have a nice tilt here. Boom. Yeah, something like that on the same side. Boom. 5. And then the other one is gonna be 21st the other way around. Boom. And you're probably gonna just leave the transition. Yeah, something like that. Yeah, I think that looks alright. And then once we had this, we didn't add that much, but because we had the heading world space, but we can add a bit of a neck motion as well. Not too crazy. In this case, probably just gonna add a bit of tilt motion. So what we can do is just maybe around the passing pose in here. Something like that. So we help a bit on the tilt, so it doesn't feel very disconnected. It feels it's moving a bit with the torso, which is good. Where is it? There you go. Yeah, there you go. So we have a bit of motion on the head, so it feels alive, but not very wobbly and stuff. And yeah, and with this, we have like a quite decent polish pass on the work cycle. Again, we can spend more time like tweaking more finely the easy in and easy out, more keys, maybe as we said when we were looking at the legs, to pay more attention and tweak more finely the knees and stuff. But yeah, I think this is a good first polish pass. After this, the only thing left is that we'll cover later on. It's all the extra bits, which is going to be dermal plates, the clothing and stuff, to add that extra layer of texture to the animation. But yeah, with this we can call it done for now.